All right, let's see how this goes. I am continuing the vlog style videos here on Death by Bunjie for the Pennsylvania crossbow season. The 37 days of awesome, or in this case, the 38 days of awesome that Pennsylvania has this year for the Pennsylvania crossbow season. I'm going to sit here in the Ranger along this nice little hedgerow, looking out over some of the apple orchards, what's left of the apples for the season, all that good stuff. But I'm basically just going to sit here and recap what's happened so far. If you've been following Death by Bunjie, you know I've had just really been fortunate. I've really been blessed this crossbow season with 4 deer in the freezer down in Maryland. We had just a great time, had a lot of success down there. I'm very proud of how that all worked out. Could not have asked for a better trip, really. In actuality, it just turned out to be such a great trip. It's given me a little bit more freedom for this Pennsylvania crossbow season because I don't feel like I have to convert during this season. I don't feel like I have to get another deer in the freezer. Already got 4. Already got venison, enough to get me through the rest of the 2018-2019. I can go the rest of the season without shooting another deer, and we should be fine on that end. So I can focus on, now if I can shoot more deer, I'm always willing to shoot more deer. Now that I'm home, I can process them myself. I have access to freezers. I have access to coolers. I have the processing gear here. You know, I can do all that stuff. So I'm happy to shoot more deer if I get that opportunity. I wouldn't turn that down. I wouldn't look away from that, of course. But by the same token, I don't need to focus on it. And I can experiment a little with things that I've always wanted to do. One of the things that I've wanted to do for quite a while is hunt from the ground. And every year I dabble in that, but I've never been successful. Now, I've hunted out of ground blinds. I'm not talking about that. A ground blind, love hunting out of a ground blind. Can't beat it. One of my favorite ways to hunt. Couldn't ask for a better way to hunt. And you've probably are growing tired of seeing me shoot deer out of ground blinds here on Death by Bunjie over food plots, apple trees, that sort of thing. They are fantastic for that purpose. But I wanted to be a little bit more mobile and hunt out in the open, either with a ghillie suit. That's what I started in the previous video. You saw some of that stuff. But I also wanted to hunt from the ground, just wearing camouflage, okay? Just either in a little makeshift ground blind that I build, a natural ground blind, or backing up into some autumn olive or multiflora rose, something like that, you know, giving myself some natural cover and hunting that way. So I've been dabbling with that. Now, I'm not particularly good at sitting still on the ground. That's my problem. And that is a problem that every year in turkey season I remind myself of. Every year in spring gobbler, I say, oh, I'm going to go out there and shoot a big old tom from the ground. And man, do I fall apart sitting on the ground. My legs get tired, my legs start to fall asleep and all that. So I have all those kinds of problems. But the more you do it, the better off you are at it, the better you get at it. So that's why I was going to focus on that more this year. That was sort of the plan. I've started, if you saw my last video, you saw the equipment that I had, the gear that I had, and how we started doing all of that. And it worked out with moderate success. In other words, I got out here, I was able to sit, I was able to get within, get sort of in the same area as deer, see some deer around the food plots here, the remaining clover in the buckfield plot, for example. That's definitely the last year of clover for that food plot. It's going to have to be re-evaluated for next season if I go that route. Now, starting out this season, if you remember from the last vlog style video that I did, the plan was, let's go hunt out of a ghillie suit, and I was going to carry the ghillie suit around that little bucket. Then I was going to pull the ghillie suit out, put that on, sit on the bucket. Good plan. Only one problem with that, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say, is that bucket is not meant for my weight. I crashed that bucket. It didn't last one full sit. And that was a bad plan for that reason. So that bucket is no more. I could use that lid on a different bucket and all that good stuff. And no fat jokes. I already know what the cause of that problem was. It is what it is. But frankly, that was something I suspected that was going to happen. Plus, the other problem with that bucket is, man, that thing was uncomfortable to carry through the woods. It just is not a convenient thing. Remember I mentioned in that last video, Genevieve and I always had this ongoing joke. Who carries a bucket? You know, it was always an ongoing joke between me and Genevieve about that. You know, ever since I started that whole process, she would laugh about that and say, who carries a bucket? So that was our ongoing joke. And the reality is it's not really a convenient thing to carry stuff in. So I'm going to stick with the backpacks for that purpose. I'm going to stick with, I got that little camera bag for all the camera gear. That's working out great. I was able to sit one night down here in the buckfield, about just off to my left, down there in a little cluster of trees, sitting on the ground. Just sitting there, had the ghillie suit on, all set up, hoping for a deer to come in. Unfortunately, all the deer were on the other end of the buckfield. They were over here, and they fed over there for a while, and then Nobody ever came my way. I don't think that they smelled me. I don't think that was an issue. The wind was working. You got to work the wind real good when you're on the ground. The wind was at my back. It was coming up across this field. And I was running the ozonics unit too, which is legal this year in Pennsylvania for the first full season. So that's kind of nice. So I had that rigged up. And to the extent that people ask me whether or not that works, here, the hum from it doesn't bother the deer, at least. Okay, those ozonics units do let off a little bit of a hum. And I don't know if you can hear this or not, but up there on the hill over here, there is a compressor station. You can probably hear that pretty good. But there's a compressor station up there that it's an oil and gas type thing. What that does is compresses the oil and gas so that it can be pushed down a pipeline. It's a compressor station to do that. So that makes a hum, and depending on the wind direction, it's louder some days than others. Because of that, you really don't hear that little ozonics unit. So that's a useful thing in that sense. So I was running that, nothing smelled me, and for what it's worth, a little woodchuck here, some groundhogs, had come out in front of me, and I saw them, and I watched them feed for an hour. I posted some pictures on the Facebook page that I had taken of that. It was kind of neat to be able to take close-up pictures of woodchucks, of groundhogs. I mean, I'd rather take pictures of a big buck, but this was still pretty cool to be that close to those animals. And they weren't nervous about me at all. They were never alerted by me. They were kind of looking around all the time because there's some thick weeds in the middle of the clover food plot there that sort of separates the twins of the field. I didn't brush hog. It was real wet, and I couldn't get in there this year. So that grew up pretty thick. And they're real mindful of that. They're looking over there and keeping an eye on it. But they never bothered them. And also, while I was there, I had a fox come through. A fox come running through here looking for mice, looking around. He followed a nice little trail, made his way through, and I got a chance to get some video of a fox up close. It's nice to get that experience when you're hunting from the ground. I feel a lot more close up with those experiences with those animals when you're hunting from the ground. So that was nice. Now, what about the deer, right? That's what we're thinking. Like, oh, were you seeing any deer from the ground? I hunted over on the other end. Now, the first thing I did, I had hunted on the upper end of that, looking down, because I know all the deer come out there feeding in the evenings and all that sort of thing, and I knew I would see deer. Sure enough, a fawn came out, but she picked me out immediately. I was on the edge of the food plot, backed up against some autumn olive, and that's just not a scenario that's going to work. Unless your camouflage matches perfectly, unless your ghillie suit matches perfectly, that's just not a scenario that's going to be successful for you. So that didn't work out for me. So I packed up all my gear. After she ran off, I packed up all my gear and I moved over to a stump just inside the tree line, just inside the brush a little bit, with a nice little view of the food plot, so when deer came out, I'd be able to see them. Unfortunately, because that fawn had been spooked, she circled around, and all the other deer apparently also circled around and came in on the other end of the food plot. And they made their way across here and came up through. Now, so the problem with that is that's off to my right. And the way I was sitting, I couldn't really swing that far to get that shot off of there, but I could have shot a nice doe that way.
Caveman stumbles back to his cave, sore from the work of the hunt. He shrugs his head and says, "Sorry, dear, I tried, but I had no luck." The cave lady tries to console him. She feeds him berries and nuts. He shakes his head and says, "There's something missing. This just ain't enough. Because I eat vegetarians. That's just a part of who I am. I eat vegetarians. I eat vegetarians. That's just a
that's pretty neat. So it's exciting. It's encouraging to be close to deer. Now today, here we are in the early afternoon, I'm actually calling it quits, about 5 o'clock, calling it quits now, and I don't feel too bad about that because I've been sitting and I actually saw the deer. I think the weather, the deer activity, I keep looking, and I know I'm not looking at the camera the whole time, but the reason for that is I'm trying to watch that buck field. I figured I'd shoot the camera. I went up, took all my gear up, and I got the Ranger, and I'm down here just to check the last couple of cameras. I figured I'd check some cameras while I'm in here, and then let this place rest until the weekend. But I hunted today, saw some deer, but unfortunately where I expected the deer to come from was not where the deer came from. But they came in, and lots of them came in. I saw lots of deer coming in here, and one of them was around me for a long time, didn't smell me or anything else, eventually left the area. They weren't spooked or anything like that, but they left the area. They did not come out into the food plot. They didn't cross my shooting lane. They didn't enter the path that I thought that they would enter, and I did not get a shot. So now where do we go from here? What happens next for the Pennsylvania crossbow season? What happens next for the 38 days of awesome? Genevieve, my daughter, she has decided to hunt with me. She's not hunting, she's just helping, but she wants to be part of it, and I will encourage that, and I will accommodate her any way I can. That's how you get kids interested in the outdoors. Make it whatever they want to do, let them do it. And in her case, she wants to run the camera. She wants to be part of using a decoy. Just did a live stream about that. Had a great time on that live stream. I hope you've checked that out, and I hope you'll join us for future live streams. Now, I've told you, and this is true, that until now, I haven't had a legal buck. You got to have 3 points on one antler here in this part of Pennsylvania for it to be a legal buck for me. Haven't had one of those on camera since November of last year. So it's been 11 months or so since I've had a legal buck on camera. But I just checked the cameras coming out of the woods here for this afternoon hunt here. I took the afternoon off from work. Believe it or not, lo and behold, a buck on the camera. More than happy to take a shot at that buck. It would be the greatest thing in the world if Genevieve and I can use a decoy and grunt and call and rattle that buck in and actually get a shot at that buck. That would be fantastic. So cross your fingers. Keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll get a shot at that. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, it's a long shot, but we'll take it, right? So let's see what we can do. There's only one way to find out whether Genevieve and I get a shot at that buck, whether we see that buck in the daylight, whether we get a chance to take a shot at that buck. And that is, of course, to subscribe here on Death by Bunjie. You can like the Facebook page, too, and follow that if you like, because I do post a lot of updates on there. Check out our live streams. They're going to be a lot of fun. We're getting more and more people every week to join in on those. In fact, this past week, there were so many that it was difficult for me to go through all the comments. So it's great to see Death by Bunjie growing. We're almost at the 10,000 subscriber mark. That's fantastic. We'll probably do a live stream about the 10,000 subscriber mark. That would be fun, too. So I hope you'll be part of that, and I hope you're enjoying this crossbow season here on Death by Bunjie, and I hope your crossbow season, wherever you are, is shaping up perfectly. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, all hail Bunjie!